right, good evening everyone. Okay, welcome back to this week's market analysis. Okay, very quickly over here, let's spend the first 2 minutes to share what we usually do over here, especially for those of you who are joining us for the first time. During the first part of this session, okay, I'll walk you through some of the potential opportunities that I'm looking out for this particular week. Okay, and then after that, for the remaining time, I'll just open up for Q&A. So if you have any questions with regards to trading and investing, or let's say you have any particular instrument that you'd like me to share an opinion and analysis on, you'll be able to do that. Just simply type it into the chat, okay, and I'll be able to look at it and answer your questions accordingly. Right, so let's get started for the first part over here first. Okay, now pretty sure you guys are already aware, we are transiting into the first month. Okay, so as usual, every first Friday of the month, we do have the non-farm payroll coming in with average hourly earnings and of course employment rate. Okay, that would be one of the most significant and important US economic data that we'll likely need to keep track of. Okay, and usually when it's on NFP week, where you have Friday an important news, the dollar would likely consolidate all the way until Friday. Okay, and that's what most of the traders and investors would likely do until the actual news is being released, and then they'll trade from it. Okay, so there are some opportunities that we're looking at is related to the dollar. Okay, so I'll share with you a bit more as to how you can position yourself and prepare for the upcoming NFP as well, utilizing some of this setup that potentially can develop by Friday. Okay, but of course, from now until Friday, we're likely going to be expecting the dollar to just consolidate and not likely going to move a lot from there. Okay, so let's get started with the dollar index over here. Okay, now I personally feel that while the recent sentiment is on the upside, I think overall there's a good chance that dollar can continue to weaken in the next 6 to 12 months. Okay, with the trajectory of what the Fed is currently still doing. They're basically still printing money and so. Okay, the interest rate is still rather low right now, right? No changes on all those things. Just they brought forward the rate hike tapering process from 2024 to 2023, right? That was where the dollar actually strengthened quite a bit, as you can see from the chart here as well. Okay, so over here right now, there are two key levels that if you're looking at the dollar index, you want to pay very close attention to. The first one, of course, is the upper boundary over here around 93.40. Okay, I doubt we're gonna see a massive break above 93.40 in the near term. Okay, near term over here can be in between like from now to 6 months time. While we might see strength continue in the dollar, okay, very unlikely we're gonna see it break huge or very significantly above 93.40. Now it can continue to come up, okay, but what I do anticipate is when it hits around this zone, we might see some kind of rejection, and overall the dollar would likely still fall within the next 6 to 12 months. Okay, so you might want to keep a very close watch of 93.40. For those of you who are maybe more on the bullish side on the dollar, keep track of this, because if it hits somewhere around 93.40, you want to be very, very cautious of your buy. Okay, and of course the downside over here you can see is this bottom here has yet to be broken, but I strongly believe within the next 6 to 12 months, going to next year, we might see dollar back at this low and even potentially breaking that level over there. Okay, but of course going down to a lower time frame within this week itself, from what I'm seeing right now, okay, of course things would change from here onwards on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but with this pattern here, what I'm seeing is that there's a good chance dollar will weaken for the week, based on what I'm seeing at this very moment. Okay, and of course just now we mentioned we do have NFP coming in Friday. Okay, so that might be the potential catalyst to push our dollar lower. Okay, or it can be just what we call a muted event, right? Muted meaning nothing much is gonna happen with the release of the NFP, right? Maybe we're gonna see some volatility, but after that it just stays stagnant. Okay, this can happen. I would say most recently, most of the NFP, if you go and look back, on those days where we have NFP, the dollar more or less are not that significant, right? The volatility is not that huge anymore compared to like maybe I would say like 2-3 years ago. Okay, NFP was like the big thing in all FX traders kind of like calendar, right? But moving forward, like from there on, I don't really see much volatility as compared to like 3-4 years ago. Okay, so from a technical point of view, from an Elliott Wave perspective, we are expecting one more push down like that. Okay, and of course this can be coming in from NFP, but we need to of course track from now to Thursday or even Friday before the news release. What is the pattern, right? What is the technical pattern that is telling us? But based on what I'm seeing now, okay, of course we still have a couple of days, but assuming this is just gonna do something like that for the next couple of days, then we have a good chance this will come lower, right? And that can be the catalyst from NFP itself. Okay, so that's one thing to keep an eye on. That's one scenario, right? That's one way that we can likely see price develop. Now the other one that you want to keep track of is of course if the second scenario happen, which means maybe from now until Thursday we continue to see the dollar index continue to coming down, weaken a little bit, building up all the way until Thursday or Friday, and then if we see this just before NFP, there will be a good chance we would see some short-term strength and momentum to the upside from NFP itself. Okay, so what I'm doing over here is I'm basically using technical patterns to guide me in the probability of where the direction would likely head towards. Okay, so it's a little bit different from what most traders would do. They will likely, you probably hear a lot of traders say that, oh, if the NFP data is good, likely the dollar is going to strengthen. If the NFP data is bad, it's likely going to weaken. Okay, that's one way of doing kind of like a direction projection. But for me, I don't really do that. Okay, so what I focus a lot is on the technical patterns, how the chart looks like. That kind of guide me in terms of where the direction would likely head towards. Okay, so in terms of dollar over here, there are two ways that we can look at it. Okay, so keep an eye on it closer on Friday. Okay, for those of you who are trading the news. Okay. Other than other than the dollar index, we do have a couple of dollar pairs here that maybe you want to keep an eye on as well. Okay, first up is of course the dollar franc. Today it has already started moving, right, which is not something that I expect because Monday are usually quiet, but somehow the dollar franc seems to be moving already. Okay, so I would say this is not a decent level to look at it anymore because initially what I was expecting is some kind of consolidation over here for today, and that will be a decent short-term trade to the upside, but it's already breaking out, right? So let's let go of this trade. Keep an eye on 9240 right now. Okay, so initially we were expecting a potential short-term buy to the upside towards 9240, but since it has already broken out of it, okay, and we are moving towards NFP, there's a good chance this will just keep going up in its momentum, and then if, okay, and only if this starts to do kind of like a crawl pattern, which you can see something like that, it lacks momentum, it lacks energy, you can see it as a wedge, as a diagonal, right? And of course over here then that will form a mini double top. If you see this just before NFP on Friday, you have a very good and solid probability that this would likely come down. Okay, of course how big this move to the downside, we won't know for sure. Okay, but if you see something like that as a setup on Friday just before NFP, there's a good chance we'll see this come down, right? So again, we are using technical patterns to kind of project what would likely happen for NFP. Okay, so keep track of this. Of course not on the buy side already, this has already broken out, but I think you want to keep track of 9240 and come back on Friday, maybe 30 minutes before NFP, and see how the pattern is developing. Okay, maybe I'll show you what would be the ideal one that we talk about in terms of the wedge. Something like that perhaps, right? I want to find something that's smaller. Don't really see it, but we'll just take it. Maybe something like that. Okay, so on Friday, okay, just before NFP, if you really see something like that, you have a very solid trade to the downside. Okay, because why? You do see this as a very slow move, no momentum, double top potential, and likely this can come back down maybe to the neckline at this low. Okay, and of course, depending on how different the expectation and the actual data of, it might even have that potential to start pushing lower, right? But you need to the first condition and criteria over here is to see a slow move develop like that at 9240. Okay, so that's the precondition for all this to even set up. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Very similar to that, I would say, is more on dollar yen. Okay, again, for those of you who are familiar with correlation, dollar yen, dollar franc, more or less they are more kind of like in sync, right? Over here, if you take a look at the dollar yen on a daily time frame, it's rather straightforward. Okay, you want to focus on the sell side, right? The downside, the room to the downside is way more significant than trying to catch that top, okay, or the buy. Right, because we are at this key zone, right, which can be that double top formation for this to drop. Okay, in fact, okay, if you take a look at, let me do this, right? If you take a look at dollar yen, okay, and just now we talk about dollar franc, right? Over here. Okay, probably need to just quickly drop that line in. Okay, so just now we mentioned we want to see this go up very slow, right? I want you to see that this pattern here, okay, if you go to the dollar yen chart, is this one here. Okay, can you see the similarity, right? Of course the size is different, the scale is different, but that's exactly what I mean by it, right? You want this move up to be slow, and dollar yen over here is showing exactly what I meant. Okay, what we want to look out for. Okay, so you really, the idea here is every time I share with traders about technical charts is, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're just identifying patterns, right? You're just developing that skill set to identify patterns on the chart that are repeatable, and they kind of like has a certain probability of how they're gonna react. And as a trader, what you do is you kind of take the action before it actually happen next. Okay, so this is something that I would like you to see. Okay, and once you are able to see through that, oh, okay, actually technical analysis at the end of the day is about identification of patterns, you will actually realize that you do not need to overcomplicate stuff in the chart, right? That's where you don't really see me use a lot of indicators and things like that. Okay, because what we focus on is patterns that tend to repeat itself over and over again. Okay, so over here, of course, the time frame is different, the scale is different, but the pattern is more or less similar, right? So this one we're definitely expecting and focusing on the sell, and of course we understand that we have NFP, so likely from now until Friday, market is not gonna move a lot. Okay, so looking at how this is gonna play out, there's a good chance, if we take this high as a reference point here, market again probably just going to be consolidating like that. If it does, then we have good setup. Again, identify this pattern. Okay, again, double top, very slow move to the upside. We are expecting this to go down, right? So same thing over here. We do expect the dollar to consolidate all the way until NFP, but the question is more of like, you need to ask yourself, how is it developing? How is it consolidating? Okay, so in dollar yen, the level here is 111.10. Okay, keep track of that. Let's monitor how it develops. If it goes very slow, you have a solid trade to trade it down on NFP day. Okay, of course, this is not going to be 100%. I want you guys to take note of that as well. There's a good chance, this is going to consolidate, and then maybe NFP comes out, this just shoot up. Okay, I want you to know it's possible, right? We are looking at probability. We are not looking at something that is 100% for sure is going to happen. Okay, every time you see something like that, there's a good probability this will drop. Okay, so that's what we are focusing on. That's all. Okay, and we are riding on, of course, the catalyst coming from NFP. Okay, and that's how we look at it. Okay, next one here we're looking out for is dollar CAD, right? So if we remove all this to keep things simple, this is a pattern that you guys would want to be familiar with as well. You get a very strong push down and then you get a consolidation. Every time you see something like that, you know there's a good chance it will continue to drop. Okay, and then of course you add in that, oh, we have NFP too. Okay, this is dollar CAD. So maybe you want to then be patient in timing your execution of the trade. Understanding all this, you can add it in and wait until maybe closer to Friday and see how this develops before you decide to maybe take the sell trade. Okay. Again, there are many ways to execute a trade. You can either look for it at the top, maybe by Friday, you know, this just continue to consolidate at the top over here. You might get a good trade at the top, or this might just decide to come down a little bit and then before Friday it's somewhere here. It's still a valid trade. Okay. The idea is, again, if you go down to a lower time frame, okay, doesn't matter where it consolidate, is it here or is it here? If it goes up as a crawl, this is the pattern we call it, okay, then you will have a good trade to the downside. If it doesn't and this just starts to come back down and it starts to consolidate here, you have a solid trade over here to trade as well, right? Again, a strong push, a correction, you take the trade down. Okay, so dollar CAD for me, it's pretty clear in the direction that we'll likely want to focus on for the short term, at least for this week. Okay, I would say focus on the sell side. However, you know, you want to time your entry a little bit towards closer for NFP, and then you just write the catalyst when it happens. Okay, if let's say, you know, by all means, Friday NFP is gonna be muted, no event, the market don't really move, then, you know, just maybe you can decide, okay, let's take the trade off and things like that. Okay, yeah, so of course it's not just about picking buy and sell. Okay, today we can share with you based on what we are observing at this moment. Okay, but I always say by then, you know, a lot of things can happen, right? Because we have a couple of days before that happening. Okay, but if you're looking to trade NFP, I think these are the three pairs that you want to keep an eye on: dollar franc, dollar yen, and dollar CAD. Okay, so far, looking at the price chart as of now, okay, it's indicating and hinting that, you know, the NFP might see dollar weakness. Okay, but we do not know. We need to see how price develop. Okay, but I'm just saying based on today, seems like it's suggesting NFP might cause dollar to weaken. Okay, yeah. So that's the dollar related pairs. We do have a couple of yen over here. Okay. If you guys are looking at shorter term, maybe within, I would say, like intra week, okay, you do have opportunity setting up on these three yens, odd yen, CAD yen, Swiss yen. Okay, so they are looking similar. If you take a look at the chart, you have this strong push, you have this correction. All three charts looks pretty much similar, right? Okay, so the idea, again, every time you see something like that, a strong push, a sideways move, a correction, okay, the probability is to the upside. Okay, the question now is more of like when. Okay, when is it gonna start going up? Because this can just consolidate bigger, right? Okay, so this is the part where you probably need to have a little bit of a strategy component to start understanding like what is the best time or better time to actually execute a trade. Okay, but every time you see this setup, this combination here, you know, good chance upside. Okay, so if you're looking at trading the yen, then you have the odd yen, CAD yen, and Swiss yen that you can potentially consider. Okay, you know, depending on how aggressive you are in targeting, of course, you know, odd yen here, you can look at some of the previous highs for your potential take profit zone. Okay, of course, then with odd yen, you realize that hey, it's not really a lot of room. Then you can consider like maybe Swiss yen, okay, because you can look at where the previous high of Swiss yen is. There's a significant room to the upside, right? Okay, so this is something you can consider. Okay, other than the yens, for those of you who are keen on crosses, okay, Euro Pound is a good pair for you to keep an eye on as well. Again, pattern tend to repeat itself, so you can see this is a very strong push up, and then this is a consolidation, so we are expecting one more push to the upside, right? So the target, we are basing it on daily. Okay, so this is the previous daily high at 8720, And if you start to go down to a lower time frame, you can see again how is this coming down. It's very, very slow. Okay, so you are expecting this to have a higher probability to the upside. Okay, but of course, you do not want to buy at any price. You want to maybe wait for some kind of consolidation here happening as well. Okay, maybe something like that. Then you have this combination of impulse, correction, and this combination again suggests upside, right? So this combination, if you can really identify it, it comes in various forms, in terms of slightly different formation of it, different size, different scale, but the principle is more or less the same, right? Every time you see a combination like that, you know there's a good chance it will continue to the upside. So euro pound, definitely this week you can keep an eye on, but what you want to wait for is maybe some kind of consolidation first. Okay, if this just starts to keep coming down very fast, then just forget about it. You're not likely going to get this trade this week. Okay, so you need to at least see a stall, a consolidation within this zone first. Okay, yeah. The other ones are yen, are francs, alright, which is pretty much similar to yen as well. The direction on this view, we are looking at upside. Okay, euro franc over here, you can see we have a very strong momentum push. So what we are expecting is some kind of consolidation over here. Okay, you might want to give it a couple of days, maybe closer to like Thursday. If this continue just go sideways, then you know there's a good chance to the upside. Okay, again, very, very straightforward pattern, right? You just need to identify that. If you take a look at the daily time frame, same thing, you know, just a bigger one. This is a strong push. This is a very slow move to the downside. So from here, you expect this to go up from this zone, right? So that's the potential that we are looking out for as well. Okay, if you are interested in euro franc, I think you can put your target somewhere around 1.1150. Okay, so you do see there's ample room for price to keep going higher. Okay, so that's your profit potential. Odd franc, Kiwi franc, more or less similar. Can you see the pattern over here? Okay, and then of course you have a smaller one over here as well. So we are all expecting this few pairs to go higher. Okay, target for odd franc is 7240. That's where your previous high is. Okay, same principle. On the lower time frame, you want to wait for some kind of consolidation first. Okay, after this impulse push, you don't jump in immediately, right? Every time you see a strong move in the market, you wait. You don't move at all. Okay, you let time, give time to the market and let it show you what it wants to develop. If it develops into something like that, then great, you have a solid trade to the upside. Okay, so same thing over here, wait for that to happen. Okay, give it maybe another 2-3 days, right? By Wednesday or Thursday, you come back, you can see if that's a solid one. Kiwi franc, more or less similar. Okay, as Aussie, this is a strong push up, wait for the consolidation, then you can take that trade to the upside. Okay, daily time frame, more or less similar. Look at that, right? Patterns tends to repeat itself. Euro franc, look at that pattern. Okay, Kiwi franc, pretty much similar, right? So what you are expecting now is just a consolidation, and then you take this trade up towards 6765. Okay, so this is a intermediate take profit level. Okay, honestly, if you are looking for the buy, I will not really consider this too much. You focus instead of 6765 as your potential target profit. Okay, last FX pair over here that I'm monitoring is pound franc. Okay, so on the daily scale on pound franc, you can see this is a strong push and then this is a consolidation, right? So it's basically just the mirror of what we have been talking about, mirror effect, right? Just flip it. So this one here, we're expecting more of the downside. Okay, so you get an impulse, you get a correction, you expect another move to the downside. And in terms of daily target over here, we are looking at this significant low, which is at 12275. Okay, 12275. So you can keep track of this pair here as well. Okay, if you go down to a lower time frame, you want to keep an eye on how is price. Okay, if we just move this a little bit over here, how is price going to develop in the next couple of days? Okay, of course we are seeing kind of like this, we call this the V shape. Okay, so V shape means you don't move, you don't go and touch it, you don't trade it. But the idea is what's next. Okay, because price can easily here, okay, just do a consolidation and a very slow move to the upside, something like that. Okay, which then prints a double top. That would be great. You have a solid trade to the downside. Now if that doesn't happen, this can also start to form maybe another V, right? So something like that, an inverted V, And if let's say this forms a consolidation here, that's also a solid trade, right? Because then you have this kind of neckline over here as well. You have this mini flat pattern. You will take that trade, right? So you need to definitely see moving forward for the next couple of days. Maybe I would say this is more like it's likely gonna be closer towards Friday, okay, or even Thursday, okay, late Thursday or even Friday. Let's see how it goes. If that develops into either of this that I've drawn, we have a solid trade. Other than that, don't touch it, right? If you only see kind of like V shape and then this comes down as a V shape, this goes back up as a V shape, don't touch this kind of things. Very difficult for you to go and trade it. Yeah, so these are the few pairs that you definitely want to keep an eye on for the week. Okay, some of it are clearer. Okay, some of it you probably need to be a little bit patient, give it time to develop. We need to see how it forms, what pattern it forms in the next couple of days. Okay, now let's talk about some of the common major pairs like gold, okay, commodities, and of course Bitcoin. Gold over here, okay, again you have NFP, right? So dollar related. So likely gold is not going to move much all the way until Friday. Okay, so over here on the daily scale, we do see a very strong push. This is from FOMC. Okay, and then after that, gold just basically decide to consolidate as of now. Looking at this setup over here, there's a good chance this can continue falling back to 1675. Again, it really depends on NFP as well and how price would develop, which pattern it will develop moving forward from here. Okay, so on the 4-hour time frame, this still looks pretty corrective in nature, which again suggests you have this impulse correction. You expect this to continue down, but you want to be cautious on gold because again, you can't, a lot. What I realized is a lot of traders would have that assumption or the misunderstanding that, oh, if dollar strengthen, gold will drop, and if dollar weakens, gold would rally. To a certain extent, that's the half truth. Okay, why I say that is because you have XAU over USD, right? So if you're looking at and you're just saying that, oh, if dollar strengthen, gold would move like that. If dollar weaken, gold would move like that. You're basically just focusing on the dollar side, and you're totally ignoring the XAU side, right? Which is not true. So that's why I say you are only 50% accurate. Right? You need to understand that this here you're looking at two assets. One is gold, one is dollar. Okay, same thing for FX pairs. You're always looking at two assets. So the idea is dollar can weaken. Okay, or let's give an example, right? Dollar can strengthen. Okay, if dollar strengthen and XAU remains constant, no change, then of course the price of XAU over USD will drop, right? That's a ratio. However, I want you to also understand and be aware that dollar can weaken, okay, or we do strengthen, right? Dollar can strengthen, but at the same time, gold can also strengthen, okay? And if both strengthen at more or less similar magnitude, then what will happen? You just do this. Okay, I want you to understand that. Now, the other scenario is dollar can strengthen, and gold can strengthen even more. And if that happens, what will happen to price? Price will go up. Okay, so understand this, because what I observe is a lot of traders, don't really understand this, and they always say, oh, if dollar weakens, the NFP strengthens, or NFP is a good data, dollar strengthens, then you sell gold. Okay, to a certain extent, yes, that might be correct. Okay, but the full understanding here I want you to know is that you have another asset that you need to keep track of. Okay, so over here, understand that gold or even precious metals is normally a commodity that's used for hedge. Okay, and when I mean hedge, it's more like if there's something uncertain, a panic, a fearful environment happening in the economy, in the financial market, gold and silver, basically your precious metal commodities, would be in strong demand. Okay, which means people will want to buy it, right? So understand that as well. Okay, so as you're trading gold, you probably need to have that perspective. Okay, so for me, I believe that, okay, for me, okay, personally, I'm still pretty convicted and confident that in the long run, 6 months to a year's time, the direction on gold is still pretty much to the upside. Okay, the question is more of like, will it push up from here, or is it gonna come back down to 1675 before it push up? Okay, so to me, I'm not interested in the downside at all. Okay, while yes, price can go down, I won't sell it. Of course, I won't buy it if this is still printing to the downside, but I'll be waiting for the next opportunity to buy. Right? This is based on the, I would say, a macro perspective, fundamental perspective, that I still see that there's a very, very good chance the dollar will devalue eventually. Okay, when I mean eventually, it's probably like 6 to 12 months time. Okay, yeah, that's like likely gonna happen, right? If I give it a probability, I would say there's a good 70 to 80% time of chance the dollar will devalue. Okay, and I would even go to the extent and say that there would probably a good 10 to 15% chance. Okay, not very high, but there's still a chance there. In the next, maybe I would say like 5 years to 10 years time, we might even see dollar losing its global reserve status. Okay, maybe not entirely, but we will start to see it start to lose a little bit of the status there. Okay, it's a little bit scary to think about it, but I feel that we should definitely prepare for that possibility of it happening. Okay, what's gonna be next global reserve currency? Obviously, now no one knows about it yet. I don't think China or Chinese yuan is ready to take over the global reserve currency status. Okay, I don't know, maybe a new, with all those crypto thing, blockchain, I don't know, maybe a new digital global currency. But whatever it is, okay, just have that in mind. Okay, it's not gonna happen so soon, but after this recovery, the next recession, if it kicks in, which is probably gonna be like between 7 to 8 years or even 10 years, right? So that's why I give the projection of 5 to 10 years. What I see here is when the next recession hits, the Fed basically has no more bullet left in their war chest, right? Interest rate has already hit 0. Okay, and the next time when they need to do QE, they need to do easing, they need to do it a little bit more aggressive than what they did now, and they basically exhaust everything they have already right now. Okay, so by the time the next recession hit, they basically have nothing left to really stimulate it anymore, right? And that's where the collapse of the dollar might happen, because they will attempt to print even more money. They will attempt to even lower interest rate more. I don't know if they're gonna decide to go into negative rates territory. Okay, but when that happens, that's where I see the dollar might lose its global reserve status. Maybe not entirely, but slowly lose its significance of it. Okay, and I just want you guys to be aware. Okay, something like that can eventually happen within the next decade. Okay, so yeah, take note of that. Okay, last one here before we open up for Q&A is Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin over here, on a daily perspective, I would still strongly suggest that you just be patient on it, especially for those who would like to touch on crypto. Okay, don't buy first, right? Because this year I'm seeing that there's a good chance, if I'm like one of the big players in the crypto market, okay, and I want you to know, right, in the crypto market this can be done, because overall the size of the crypto of Bitcoin is still relatively small. Okay, and a few players big enough come together, they can more or less still manipulate price. Okay, I think you guys will probably also be aware that you don't even need money to manipulate price on crypto. Okay, you just need Elon Musk put out certain words, it moved the market. Okay, so what I'm seeing over here is there's a good chance this would develop into something like that. Okay, and do keep track of this key level around 28900. Okay, now I strongly believe this can happen in Bitcoin, where it would show you a little bit of a push, get everyone excited about it, and then people will say, okay, this is the bottom, let's buy it. Okay, maybe then you will push it a little bit higher, and then they will try to squeeze this back down, break that 28900 level. Okay, and then that's where everyone who bought in here will probably start panicking. They would sell it off, and then that's where the big players will probably come and scoop it up somewhere around 28900, and then you would see something like that. Okay, it's a bit far-fetched, but this is what I am expecting Bitcoin to do. Whether is it gonna happen, I don't know. Okay, but if I am those big boys, this is what I will likely play out. Okay, that's how I'm gonna squeeze the retail to buy in, and then make a big drop over here. They will sell, and then I'll buy in here very, very cheaply. Okay, so that's what I'll do if I'm a big boy, right? But of course, whether this is likely gonna happen, I won't know for sure, but this is what I expect. So for me, okay, I will not go and accumulate Bitcoin at this moment here. Okay, I would wait out at 28900. Okay, if I'm wrong and this just keep going, then I'll just find another opportunity to set up here, and then I'll get in at a higher price. No matter, okay, it doesn't matter on that. So yeah, just want to share with you this little perspective that I have on the Bitcoin. Okay, how true, whether this is gonna happen, I don't know. Okay, but just something to share with you in terms of how I view it. Okay, from here on. Okay, good. That's all I have for what I've prepared, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna open up the remaining time, okay, for Q&A. Okay, I'll take a look at some of the questions you guys have, and then I'll answer them one by one. Okay. Good. Okay, so I see a question here from Amelita asking about whether this is recorded. I don't think it's gonna be, if you're at GoToWebinar joining in, I won't have the recording. Okay, you probably need to ask it. Okay, but what I do is I also have a copy on the YouTube side, so if you go over to my YouTube, you probably can watch the recording there as well. Okay, so if you have any questions, just feel free to put it up into the chat box. Type it in, I'll be able to look at it and answer questions. Okay, so I see some of you are sending in a few currency pairs that you like, maybe a different opinion on, right? So let's take a quick look at them. Okay, I see euro dollar, pound dollar, euro odd, and odd cat. Now in terms of the major pairs like euro dollar and pound dollar, okay, it's not something that I would want to put too much emphasis on for now. Okay, because from a technical point of view, this seems like it's potentially developing into something bigger, okay, within a consolidation here. So you know, for the next, I would say, good 1.5 weeks, you'll probably be trapped within this zone. Okay, so not gonna be a huge movement, somewhere from here, right? So that's somewhere around like close to 1.2 to the bottom here around 1.1850, right? So that's about 150 pips range. Okay, this is what I'm seeing. Okay, so from my analysis point of view, I would suggest that unless you are looking at intraday movement, you know, looking at short-term move up, short-term move down, you might have opportunity. But if you're more on the swing side of things, I don't think you want to pay attention too much to it, because likely if this is gonna just do something like that for this 1.5 weeks, you won't have anything that you can capitalize on, right? Okay, so that's my view on euro dollar. Okay, looking at this, of course, we might see, you know, dollar comes down a little bit, then NFP might spike it up, then, you know, from there come back down. Okay, we need to see how it goes, right? But for now, based on what I'm seeing, not enough information yet. Okay, actually pretty much similar to pound dollar. Pound dollar, there's a good chance this can go up a little bit like that. Okay, but this is not a trade I would be very excited about, right? Because to me, it's a very small move. Okay, if you take a look at that high here is 1.4. Where we are right now is about 1.39. Okay, so that's 100 pips. Okay, now to me, putting a target of 100 pips, unless you are intraday, it's not worth looking at it from a swing trading point of view. Okay, So if you're looking at it from a short term, then you might have that short term buy opportunity to the upside because of this setup over here. Okay, but once it reach around 1.4, you want to be very, very careful of that, because then this can turn into a double top and then this can drop back down. Factor this in with NFP as well, which means that you might not get a lot of move from now until Friday, right? So even if, let's say, this starts to break up, it might be a very, very choppy move to the upside. Okay, which means that any trade on the dollar related pair that you're going to be trading before NFP is not going to be easy. Okay, emotionally it's not going to be easy. Psychologically it's going to be toying with you a lot. Okay, up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay, so just have that in mind, right? So basically, whenever you have a high impact news, before that, you try not to take trades first. Okay, you want to, kind of ride that catalyst from the news, right? So for example, if NFP is going to release in let's say Malaysia and Singapore time zone is at 8:30 in the evening, you might want to come to the chart at like 8:15. Okay, set up your entry, set up your trades, and then wait for the news to release. And if it goes in the direction that you're interested, then put a breakout entry order, right? A stop order, whether is it buy stop, sell stop, then that's how you can capitalize on that. Okay, so that's my suggestion for you guys who are looking to trade the dollar related for this week. Okay, one of you asked on Euro Australia. Okay, just want to take this out. Okay, for now, Euro Australia, the direction is down. Okay, on a higher time frame is definitely down. Okay, this setup, this pattern is very, very clear. If you go to the 4-hour time frame, you do even see this over here, right? This double top formation, and then you get this push. Of course, this is the neckline. It hasn't really broke it yet. We have kind of like a momentum down here as well. So everything is pointing that you want to be focused more on the sell side. Okay. However, this is not a sell setup that I would take. Okay. This one over here, I would say there's a good chance this can develop into something like this bigger. Okay. And for this pattern here to develop, you need to give it another week. Okay, which means maybe until next week, somewhere around Tuesday, Wednesday, then you only get the opportunity to get involved in. Understand that from a swing trading point of view, right? You might not have set up on the same pair every week. Okay, so especially like last week, if you see something like that, then this week it will probably form a consolidation, right? Because every time the market make a good move, a big move, you want to give it time to develop the correction first. Okay, so Euro Auth, I think for this week you might not want to focus too much on it. Likely it's just gonna do something like this within the consolidation phase. Yeah, so that's my view on that. AuthCat, the direction I'm focusing on AuthCat is to the upside. But at this moment, it's not the cleanest pattern that I can identify. Okay, looking at how this is playing out, there's a good chance this would just continue to develop into something like that. Okay, so I'm not going to be surprised if this comes down lower towards 9245 before that eventual break to the upside, right? So if you're looking at AuthCat, you want to be a bit patient and see if price does something like that, okay, which is a crawl. You can see on the left hand side a potential double. Okay, let me refresh that. Okay, a potential double bottom as well. Okay, yeah, something like that. So you can see here, right? Double bottom, okay, and then that push, right? So the level to keep an eye on is 9245. Okay, that's on AuthCat. Good. And another question I received over here is on COT data, hedge fund just close some long position and just add some short one. Could this be another profit taking? Yeah, I mean, you can see from COT perspective, right? How many positions are in the long, how many positions are in the short, and then from a week to week basis, how many positions on the long and short are being closed and added. Okay, So if you're taking a look at that and you realize that from last week to this week, there is a drop in the long and the increase in the short. Yeah, it can be, you know, these large speculators, they are adding on to their short position. Okay, but you want to also track, I mean, compare it in terms of like how significant is that change. Okay, now I do not have the actual data right now, but let's just say, you know, if let's say the net long, sorry, the long position, okay, give you some understanding and context of what I'm referring to. If the long position, if let's say is 10,000, okay, of course I'm not sure exactly what it is now, giving you an example. This is, let's say, last week. Okay, and then let's say the latest data, which is this week's data, okay, and you start to see that, okay, this long position is now maybe 10,100, or it drops, okay, so maybe 9,900. Okay, so let's say this drop here is, you know, if you take it as 100, which is 10%, okay, that's a pretty significant drop. Okay, so I want you to also track on that, right? You need to track like the changes of it. Is it significant enough? If let's say this drop here is only dropping to like maybe 9,980, okay, it's a 20 contracts drop, okay, that is an insignificant move, okay. So you know, you want to track on that too, okay. When there's a change in your week to week in terms of your net position, your long and short position, okay, how significant that change is, okay. That is also a crucial analysis and information for you, okay. But let's assume the long change and the short change is significant, then yeah, that means that the speculators over here are kind of like looking for gold to come down lower. Okay, so of course you can also utilize this information over here from COT to help you in your directional bias as well. Yeah, so that's on the COT aspect. Good. Gold and silver XAG is more or less similar. Okay, so the idea here is the direction of, you can see, right, the chart more or less similar. Okay, impulse, sideways move, XAG, silver, impulse, sideways move. Okay, if you're looking at silver, okay, it's really in its consolidation phase, right? You can see this is all the way from August last year until now. It's just basically going sideways. Okay, and looking at how this is playing out, there's a good chance, you know, I'm not going to be surprised if silver really come back to this low here, which is somewhere around 21.85. I'm not going to be surprised if that happens, okay, honestly. Okay, so if you're looking at like long-term play on this precious metal, you need to definitely have that patience. Okay, why is because if you take a look at the weekly perspective, right, it can really go on for very, very long before a pop. Okay, so this one here can really go on for quite some time before the next pop, right? You need to be patient with that. Okay, and if you go back to like where 2008 happened, okay, actually what I'm looking out for is this kind of move over here that happened back in 2008, 2009. That's where our previous kind of like recession happened, and then the Fed prints a lot of money, lower interest rate, and then this is what I'm expecting to happen this time round, right, with March, and then the Fed starts to print a lot of money and things like that. Okay, so if you just do a very rough duplication, right, you can see this. Okay, this white color one is what happened in 2008, 2009. Okay, can you see, you know, it take off and then it goes in some kind of slow move for some period of time, and then only it starts to take off again, right? So if you just kind of do this kind of duplication, okay, you know, if this continue, just stretch it out somewhere around here, and then, you know, this is where it starts to go. That time or the date, if you take a look at that, you know, it's a little bit tiny, but that reads 1st November 2021. Okay, so maybe that's the time where the precious metal will kick off. Okay, 1st November 2021, and then add in a little bit of seasonality. That's also the period where precious metal are in the season of rallying. Okay, end of year usually the precious metal starts to rally. Okay, so not only from a technical point of view, not only from the fundamental macro point of view, right? We are adding in, let's say, on seasonality. You know, end of the year, that's where your precious metal rally. Okay, so yeah, that's roughly the time. Maybe, you know, for those of you who are looking at this potential here, you want to maybe come back on the precious metal nearer to like late October or early November. Okay, so you do have ample time. Right now we are only in like going into July, right? So yeah, you need to be patient, but you know, honestly, if you can catch this kind of move, you really do not need a lot of such trade in the year to profit from it. Okay, but keep an eye on it, right? So this is why just now I mentioned I'm actually bullish on gold and precious metal, right? It's really because of this macro understanding. Okay, just take that duplication of what happened in 2008, 2009. Okay, same thing in gold over here. Okay, take a look at that. Okay, so I just take this very simple duplication from 2008, the bottom of 2008, and then we map it to like this one here. Okay, where is March? Okay, so March is somewhere here. So even if we don't take like March, right, I'll be very conservative and let's take this low here, which was in 2018. Okay, you can see we have still so much room, right, if we just do a simple duplication of that. Okay, so that's something that why I'm bullish on gold and silver. Yeah, so hope that's clear. Good. Cool. Okay, I see a question over here asking about where can we read about gold silver fundamentals. Now there's not much of a fundamental in gold and silver, honestly. Gold is more like a speculative precious metal. Okay, but if you want to understand fundamental, maybe silver has a little bit of fundamental because it has industrial usage to it. Okay, so what you then want to study is more of like the demand of silver, okay, versus the supply of it, which is the mining side of things. Is there a mismatch, right? Of course, if there's an increase in demand, then prices of silver will tend to rally as well. Okay, so that's more like the fundamental from the industrial usage of it. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't even touch on like you mentioned, like is it related to Aussie dollar? It's not really that. Okay, it's just a phenomenon, a correlation where Australia can mine quite a bit of precious metal, and therefore, you know, the price of the precious metal would affect the GDP of Australia, and therefore that's the relationship to the Aussie dollar. Okay, it's quite a bit far-fetched. Yes, it has a little bit of effect, but it's not that prominent. Yeah, so that's the idea of it. Great. Okay, so I see another one, another question over here asking on Euro 50. Okay, so that's on Euro index. Let me see if I can find that ticker symbol here. It should be this. Okay, I don't really track the Euro 50. So I'm a bit reluctant to be. I mean, I'm not that convicted in Euro 50 as compared to like US indices. Okay, now but generally, you know, the relationship is more or less the same. They are equities market, they are indices market. I would say that generally we are in a bullish environment for equities. Okay, which means that any dip, any correction in the equities are buying opportunity, at least for the next 6 months to 12 months time. Okay, after that is a total different story. We need to monitor it closely, but for the next 6 months, I'm pretty confident it's bullish in the stock market, right? When I say this, I'm referring to the US side, okay, because that's more like the benchmark of global equities. But I strongly believe, okay, Euro probably more or less similar, because if you're looking at, let's say you're based in Malaysia and Singapore, it's a totally different story, right? It's probably not going to be bullish, maybe it's a range, okay? But I think, if you're talking about Euro, talking about more like the developed countries like US, okay, generally equities are bullish. But that does not mean that it's just close to eye and buy, because there will be kind of like a dip, a correction before the push, a dip, a correction before the push. Okay, so looking at the price chart as of now from maybe on a 4-hour scale, few things that can happen over here. Okay, one is that this is indeed the short-term bounce, and we start to see maybe a new high from here. There is also that possibility this can just comes back up and then form a mini double top, comes back down, and then that longer term push to the upside. Okay, so you need to then, I would say from the chart point of view, you want to then keep track of like this high here. Okay, if price comes towards this high and starts to slow down and there's no momentum to break through it, then you want to be cautious that the short term this can come down. Okay, however, if you start to see that this just breaks through it and then form some kind of consolidation above it, then you have a good chance it will continue higher from there. Okay, so for me, I would say focus on the buy side for equities for now. Okay, so far the macro environment still suggests upside, right? So that's why I say can focus on up. Okay, good. Okay, so I see over here pound yen. Pound yen is a pair that I would say for this week, just keep it aside, don't go and touch it, nothing much, leave it. Okay, it's just not clear as to like where you can focus on, right? We call this kind of like no man's land, right? It's just the analogy where today you're out in the ocean without a compass, you're just floating around, you have no idea where you're heading. Okay, this is the context that we say right now is at no man's land. Okay, price is basically floating around, there's no compass, no direction. It's probably lost, right? So just give it time. Okay, so sometimes you realize when I look at the chart, I'll just straight away tell you, for now, give it time. Okay, there's not much we can do about it. Okay, good. I see over here market share about precious metal trading by Philip Gottel. Good. Yep, I never really read that book before. Okay, but yeah, right, thanks for sharing. I think maybe if I have the time, we'll probably dig into that as well. For those of you who are keen on to fundamental regarding to precious metal, right, then Marcus over here also share about the book titled Precious Metals Trading. Hey, good. Okay, another one I see is S&P, right? Same thing over here. Okay, basically equities market generally we are looking for upside. So yeah, any bullish setup that you can see, if let's say over here it starts to form its consolidation, just look for it as a buy opportunity. Okay, so the idea here is, again, in terms of equities, if you see buy setup, buy opportunity for the next 6 months, I'm pretty confident the market will still keep going higher. Okay, but after that, it's a total different story. Okay, I see here one of you asking, Michael Burry is betting that the stock market is gonna crash. What's my opinion? Now, to be honest, okay, I think Michael Burry has his insights and of course his reason for calling that. But I always share with traders that we can't compare, or we can't make our decision, or we can't make a decision based on what this I would say hedge fund house traders are doing. Okay, now if you actually just understand, like Michael Burry actually shorted the housing market in 2004 2005. Okay, and the housing market only got busted in 2008 and 2009. So if I just give it a very rough estimate, if let's say Michael Burry started to short it in 2005, the market bust at 2008, that's a good 3 years. Okay, the question is more of like, as a retail, can you hold on, or can you be so convicted to hold on to your thesis and position for 3 years and bleeding? Okay, he was actually bleeding because he needs to pay interest, right? But when the home run comes, he makes a lot of money. Okay, so if you ask me, in the short run, I don't think the stock market is gonna collapse. Okay, that's based on my perspective, my analysis. Of course, not just from a technical point of view, but from the macro side of things. I don't think for the next 6 to 12 months the market is gonna collapse. Okay, but likely maybe after that, there might be a chance the market might crash. Okay, and the idea, or I would say what can potentially cause the market to crash, okay, would likely be, number one, inflation going out of hand. The Fed just decide to do, I don't know, multiple rate hikes in a year, and usually the Fed do it like tier by tier, right? They increase every time, maybe every 2-3 months. When they're in the tapering process, every 2-3 months they increase maybe 0.25%. Okay, but if let's say inflation got ahead of them, it overrun by a lot, and they're in a panic mode and they want to raise rate way faster. Okay, maybe every time they raise rate, they raise it by 0.5%, and they raise 4 times a year. Okay, to just push interest rate up as high as fast as possible to curb inflation. That would definitely cause a market crash. Okay, that one I can tell you 90% it will crash the market. Okay, and when would that likely happen? 2023, right? That's what the Fed is stating right now. Okay, so yeah, right. Eventually, I think we will see a crash. Okay, it's more of like when, and what would be the catalyst of it. Okay, but for now, from a macro environment, we are still not seeing that sign coming yet. Okay, so yeah, right. So that's my opinion on it. But if you ask me, what's the reason Michael Burry actually are bearish on the stock market, I don't know. Okay, it might be really because he already start to see that eventually this will happen, where inflation gets out of hand, the Fed would have nothing left but just to play out interest rate, keep hiking a lot, and he's preparing for it, right? Maybe his horizon is really that long. Okay, because if you look at what he played out in 2005 to 2008, he started shorting the housing market in 2005. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so that's my view on that. Okay, cool, good. All right, so again, hope you guys actually pick up a thing or two from today's sharing session. Okay, we do have a couple of positions that we can monitor, or I would say opportunities in the shorter term perspective that we can keep a close watch on. Yeah, so that's the part on it. Okay, great. So I think I covered most of your questions. Cool, right? So I really hope you guys benefit and enjoy something like that. So we do this every Monday, okay, from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Of course, depending on where you are. So from Malaysia and Singapore, it's 9 to 10 p.m. So that's what we do on a week-to-week basis every Monday, where I share with you some of the opportunities I'm monitoring, and then we just do a very casual Q&A session, where you have this chance to just bounce ideas, ask some questions, right? We just talk about the market and something like that. Yeah, so great. Hope you benefit from it. Okay, and of course, if you have friends who kind of like you feel that can benefit from this, who enjoy something like that as well, just feel free to invite them, okay, to join in, because we run this every Monday. Yeah, so that's all from me for today. All the best for all of us, okay, for the week, and we'll touch base again next week. Okay, so all the best, and I'll see you guys next Monday. Bye bye.